we've finished our steel structure, we're going to start focusing on the concrete one. It's the British Art Gallery down at Yale. I'm going to keep this video short and not show all the stuff. I'm just going to show the functional part of this. So we want to download from Canvas this concrete template. And let's keep it in downloads. Yeah, we'll leave it as 1 for now. Alright, so if I open this directly after downloading it, what happens is it opens as a template. And the point of a template is for somebody in an office to set it up to have all the families it needs, all the levels it needs, but you might have multiple people working on the same template, so you don't want to make changes to the template itself. So if I come to save as, you can see that's my only option. So if this is some sort of shared file in the office and 3 different people are working on it and they're all changing the template, that's less than ideal. So what you ought to do instead, and it doesn't matter when you're in school, but once you get to an office, you're going to say new, and here you're going to say browse, and I'm going to go to that folder, and in my downloads folder, it was this one. I'm going to create a new project. Say OK. Same window, same information, but now if I go to File, Save As, I can save it as a project. I'm not impacting the template. It's not changing some shared file to reflect things that maybe we don't want. All right, that being said, we're only going to do a corner of the building. If you look at the PowerPoint, the grids are 20 by 20. We're going to do 4 of those quadrants. So I'm just going to come into grid here on my level 1. I'm going to draw my first one. All right, that's number 1. If you want to see it on both sides, there is a box. And so now I've got it labeled top and bottom. I'm just going to copy this twice, 20 feet each time. All right, now I'm going to do 3 horizontal. Again, Architecture tab, Grid. I'm going to come in here. And before I start copying this one, even though there's only 6 total, I'm still going to change this to be Grid A. And just in case, I'm going to put it here. All right, I've got my grids. I'm going to come into my 3D view just to see what it looks like here. Oof. Yeah, this is not going to be fun to work with. So there's a way around this to where everything falls neatly within a scope box, but you cannot do a scope box from 3D. You've got to do it from a floor plan. So I'm going to come into level 1. I can draw a scope box now. Something like this. I'm going to come back to my 3D, and before I try and associate these with the scope box, I want to make sure everything is fully inside, and it is not. So I'm going to drag this down to make sure I'm below this level, and I drag this up to make sure I'm above the highest level. And now what I can do, I can just do a left drag, pick all of my levels and all of my grids, and over here you see scope box, none. If I switch this to the one we just drew, now everything is going to stay within that space. And I could, adjust that, and you'll see everything goes along with it. All right, let's take a look at one of our elevations. He's just not playing nice. We'll fix that later. Alright, so our bottom level is level 1. We want to make some foundation walls. I'm going to actually go to level 2. And if you wanted, for your brain, if you wanted to say this is level 0, level 15, level 27 and a 3 inches, you label it how you want. I know that if I try and come into level 2, and this is, I've tried a brand new template and it still gives me the same glitch. But if I try and come in here and do a structural wall, it's going to start off with this starting and ending on the same level with an negative offset. If I try and change that to something we actually want, I get this top constraint is invalid. So you have two options. You either draw it poorly and then fix it after it's drawn, or if I come to level 2, I can now come in, say wall, structural. I'm going to switch to my 12-inch retaining. I'm going to say it starts on level 1, has no offset. I don't get that error message anymore. Right, I hit enter, tell it I'm done. Let me check. Yeah, now it's actually at the correct height instead of starting 20 feet down here and not even coming up where we want it. So now that we've got that, we are going to do some wall footings again, just like before. And now here's where it's going to get a little different. There are cases where you're going to be wanting to transfer loads from a column above through all the way through the foundation. So sometimes you will have embedded columns within this and then isolated footings as well. So we're going to do that. First thing, I'm going to try the columns. And again, remember we have that negative offset. At least I do. So I'm going to come in here to level 2, structure, column. I'm going to stick with these. I'm going to say at grids. And I'm going to say finish. That's okay. Now let me go to my 3D view and see what we're looking at. Okay. That is strange, but I will take care of it. Just by doing a left to right. Now only anything fully encased is going to count. So you can see I have 9 structural columns. They're starting on level 2, ending on level 2 with a negative 9 offset. I'm going to switch these to starting on level 1, 0 on the offset, click apply. Maybe you'll get lucky and not have that issue. Alright, so now I can come back into level 1. I've got my columns. Now I'm going to do my footings. So again, structure tab, isolated footings. I'm going to do at grids. I'm going to say OK. And this is going to be your standard. There are situations where either due to pre-existing construction or property limitations or densely populated areas, you're not going to have this amount of space. It's not ideal, but you will find in structural engineering books that sometimes these footings are offset. Ideally, it would be centered, nice even distribution, but that's not what we're going to do here. So first, I want to take these. I'm going to hit spacebar on these two, rotate them. And now I'm going to use in Modify tab, Align. So if you haven't used Align before, the first thing you click is where you want to move something to, and then you click what you're trying to move. So I'm going to do that for all these isolated footings, all right, great. So those are all where we want them. Now, just like before, we want to have some sort of beam connecting these to each other to help in case that there's any sort of unplanned erosion. Well, nobody ever plans erosion, but I'm going to go back into Structure tab. I'm going to say Beam. We got these 12 by 18 beams. I'm going to say On Grids. And then I'm just going to highlight these. Click Finish. I'll take a look at it from 3D mode. And now everything looks pretty good. I'm going to switch to Shaded. So our wall and our isolated are the same height now, unlike the steel template. And this is also the same height. Now let's pretend we're trying to save some money. Concrete's expensive. So we could come in, we could highlight all these, and we could switch them. Instead of 12 by 18, we could use the drop-down menu and say these are 12 by 12. You know, we're still sharing the load, but we're saving ourselves. It adds up pretty quick with concrete, that whole section. And then, like I said, this is only a corner of the building. You spend that out over the whole building, and that's a lot of money. So now we want to do something on this level. And we want to connect these with beams as well. But before I get there, let's go ahead and make a floor. So I'm going to come back to level 0, Structure, Floor. I'm going to go ahead with this 4-inch. I'm going to make it a rectangle. And I'm just going to come for the inside corner of the wall. I'll just come all the way out here. That's a little funky. I'm going to give it a 4-inch offset. All right, there we go. Now this looks a little better. I want to connect these. I'm going to come back to level 2. Maybe you've renamed yours to level 15. I'm going to come into Beam. And I'm going to stick with these. I'm going to say On Grids. And I'm going to highlight these. You don't need to do the walls because those are already 12 inches and act as a beam. So now I've got this nice grid to work with. We are only going to model one particular type of support system, but just like wood or steel, you could do concrete joist. You could do a solid slab. We're going to do a waffle beam system that intersect with each other because it's, you know, something that's ever exposed, like it might be once you get out of this basement. It adds a lot more visual interest to a project than just straight lines. So if I come into Structure and I go to Beam System, there's no automatic beam system happening for me right now. So what I want to do is I want to set this to level 2. Click OK. And now I can pick supports. And I'm going to have to trim this one, right? Because it extends beyond. But I can tell, and maybe it'll be easier to see from above, that because these double lines are here, these beams are going to run in this direction. If I wanted to change the beam direction, I could come here. I could say, no, actually, I want the beams to go across this way. I'm going to use my trim and say OK. Alright, that's okay, but like before, you don't want them to be the exact same size. And also, maybe we want to switch this from fixed distance to fixed number of 6. Click OK. Now my smallest one I have currently is that 12 by 12. So if I come in here, switch it to 12 by 12, that still looks a little beefy for what we're trying to do. So I'm going to make a smaller one. I'm going to come into Structure, Beam, and it doesn't really matter which one I pick. I'm going to hit Edit Type. I'm going to say Duplicate, and I'm going to call this a 6 by 12. Oh, sorry, my mouse just flew. Click OK. And now I want to change this to be 6 inches. And I'll just change this to be a foot. So I can come back in to my beam system, and I can change this down here from the 12 by 12 to the 6 by 12. Now that looks a lot more reasonable. So how do we get the cross section? Well, we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to go to beam system. We're going to make sure we're on level 2. Great, it remembered. I'm going to pick supports. I'm going to start over here, and the first one you click is what defines the direction. So if I clicked here first, we'd be going the opposite way. I'm going to use trim again. Clean this up. Again, we're fixed distance. We should be, let's see, where are we at? 6 by 12s. Click OK. Alright, so let me switch this again from fixed distance to fixed number. Alright, now we have something that looks a little nicer, especially if you're underneath it looking up. If you look at pictures of this type of system, once you get around these posts, there's always a little additional support there. I could go in and do a component model in place and copy it everywhere, but that's not my style. I'm going to come into level 2. I'm going to go to floor. And let's see what else we have. I'm going to go ahead and just go with a 6-inch concrete. And I'm going to give it a negative 4-inch because we're going to put a floor in here in a minute, and I don't want it graphically to show through. Say OK. Apply. And now I can come in and I can just draw here. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to say don't attach. And now I've got this nice reinforced area. It won't conflict with the floor we're going to put on top in a minute. So now I can come in, I can highlight all the stuff I want. I'm just going to do a left to right. I'm going to use my filter. Actually, yeah, no, I'm not. I'm going to cancel that, and I'm just going to manually hold the shift key to remove this one. Remove this one, because those exist already. And this one. Nope. Right, so now I should just have, cooperate with my mouse. I should just have selected, great. All right, I'm going to try another tact here. Check my filter. Hopefully I have the floor in there. I don't. That's okay. I'll add it in a second. I'm going to hold shift and get rid of that. And then I'm going to add, by holding control, those floors. And I'm going to hold shift and get rid of this column. Now I can go to level 2 where it's a little easier. I can say copy. I'm going to copy it over this direction. If I want to move down now, I can just click copy again. Everything's still highlighted and I can change directions. Hit copy again. Change directions. So this is the very start of our art museum. I'm going to stop it here to keep the videos short. Well, I'll throw on one more of these up here and then we'll go to the next one. So I'm going to come to my level 2. I'm going to go to structure, floor. I'm going to pick the 4-inch again. I'm going to leave this. I can change my mind later manually. So now I've got something that looks like this. Now if I had come in here, let's see if it'll let me get one of the other floors. So if I had come in here and gotten rid of that offset, yeah, you get that message, but also you get this. I'm not a real big fan of seeing stuff like that. So that's why we did the offset. All right, I'll stop this and we'll keep going in the next video for all the structure above and do a little bit of drainage outside the foundation.